Welcome back. Well, now we'll be turning our attention to a separate matter entirely. Our data and information analyst, Babajide Ogunsanwo, joins us now. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, this is a matter that we know how also very important it is at this time, and it will always be. It's about employment, unemployment, underemployment, or put together. You've been looking into all of those, and we'll come to the part where the government is coming up with this social intervention program of theirs. But what have you found lately?
We could look at it from a slightly different perspective. And 5 decades ago, what was the unemployment rate in the country? Now, Chamberlain, I'll share that information with you in a short while, and I think the facts will surprise you. But today, unemployment rate, based on the last report, the evidence that we have, says it is 32.6%. Now, that's a huge unemployment rate, especially if we look at where we were 5 decades ago, just 1.7%. But is the narrative that we are not creating jobs correct? Now, that narrative, based on evidence that we have, shows that even though there's a huge unemployment problem at the moment, we indeed are creating jobs. The challenge is we are creating jobs, and a lot of jobs, in the wrong places. Now, are there ways to prove that indeed we are creating the wrong type of jobs? Yes, they are, and I'll share 3 of those ways with you quickly. The first is, just 2 years ago, the NBS said there were lots of prisoners in our system, lots of criminals. So they put that number at 57,121 people in jail 2 years ago, October 2014. Just last month, the Minister of Interior says that there are 65,000 people in prison today. Here's what it means. It means the number of people in jail has increased by 14%. Now, that's the kind of rate we're looking for the economy to grow. So you can clearly see that even though the economy isn't growing, the number of criminals are indeed growing. Here's what it means. We are creating jobs in the crime sector. But that's just one simple way to look at it, Suleiman. There's a more interesting way to understand where the jobs in crime are being created. So let's look at the evidence we have. The total number of jobs that were created in the formal sector within the first 6 months of this year. Less than 65,000. However, number of people in jail, 65,000. Here's what it means. It means you are more likely to find someone who is in prison than find a job in the formal sector. That's just one way. The second way that allows you to understand that we are creating jobs in the wrong places is the most recent study by the Global Burden of Disease. Says the total number of Nigerians who died last year of malaria and HIV were 324,000 people that died of malaria and HIV last year. However, total number of jobs we created in the formal sector, just 251,000. So here's what it means as well. It's more likely for you to find someone who's died of malaria and HIV than to find someone or to easily find a job. So again, we are creating jobs for pallbearers. In simple terms, we are creating lots of jobs for those who carry caskets. But again, that's not the kind of job you and I want. Now, the third and perhaps the most clear narrative that shows that we are creating jobs in the wrong places is to look at what the Global Financial Integrity says about illegal money. In simple terms, corruption-laden money that has left the country within a 10-year period, between 2004 and 2010. They said $178 billion has left the shores of Nigeria illegally. In simple terms, we call it corruption money. Now, they're still compiling the numbers for 2015, for 2014 and 2015. But they've said within 10 years, the equivalent of 54 trillion naira has left based on corruption. Now, here's how it all connects with unemployment, and indeed how it connects with creating employment in the wrong places. So we've got 54 trillion naira that has left illegally. But the CBN says the number of people that have saved money in the banks, families like you and I, that have worked hard legally, we've got 3.3 trillion naira in our savings, and including checking accounts. So total value of savings and checking accounts for families as at the end of last year, 8 trillion naira. So listen to how it all connects. So after working hard,
is that increasing or decreasing?
It's increasing marginally. But after working hard, families in the country only have 8 trillion naira worth of savings and cash in their checking accounts. However, those that are involved in that job called corruption have made over 54 trillion naira. So in simple terms, even though there's no justification for corruption, even though it's unethical and it is not right, those that are employed in corruption-laden activities are making more money than those that are employed in the right activities. So here's what it means. There's a lot of employment being created in the corruption sector. And indeed, the corruption sector today is more profitable and has and holds and controls more money, 54 trillion naira, than the monies hardworking families earn in Nigeria. So clearly, unemployment is a big problem, but indeed the bigger problem is that we are creating jobs, but we are creating jobs in the wrong places. We are creating jobs in prison. The number of prisoners are shot up. We are creating jobs in corruption, and we are creating jobs in the mortuary.
But isn't that contradictory, the part that we're creating jobs for corruption in the light of the current government stance on the fight against corruption?
Yes, despite the stance against corruption, corruption is a huge sector. And there's a lot of money that is being made in that sector. And the evidence clearly shows that those in that sector, even though it's risky for them, the investment yield of investing in corruption is huge. But despite the huge unemployment concerns, is all hope lost? No, it isn't, and I'll explain why. There's a lot of physics in the country, and what do I mean by physics? We've got 79.8 million Nigerians in the labor force. Now that is potential energy. Potential energy.
79.8
million in the labor force.
That's larger than some people's country.
Oh, yes it is. Yes it is. So the government now needs to create a plan on how it moves people from potential energy to what they taught in school, to kinetic energy.
Is that just about the unemployed or the underemployed, or a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. Everyone who is in the labor force, both the employed, the unemployed, the underemployed, everybody. But here's what the challenge today is: the number of people that wake up and have nothing to do. We call it the do-nothing economy. So here's what it is, Chamberlain. If we quickly observe that.
Yeah.
As when the elections were going on last year, there were 2.4 million Nigerians who woke up every day and they had absolutely nothing to do. And this is the evidence and the narrative from the NBS. Now we've seen that number more than double. So today, here's what the NBS says. They say 5.7 million Nigerians wake up every day and they've got nothing to do. Now I'll explain what 5.7 million means. The population of Gabon, of Gambia, of Guinea-Bissau isn't up to 5.7 million. So picture a country filled with people with nothing to do. Now, you talk about Lee Kuan Yew, former leader in Singapore.
Yeah.
Today's Singapore doesn't even have a population of 5.7 million. So also picture a Singaporean economy that everybody wake up and they've got nothing to do. Now, these are the exact and precise numbers from the NBS. The challenge is, does the government's Empower plan, potentially 500,000 jobs, help with the problems that we have regarding unemployment today? Yes, 500,000 jobs help, but is it sufficient? No, it isn't, and I'll explain why. When all the elections were going on last year, we had 55.6 million people that had full-time jobs. Chamberlain. So just try and hold on to that number somewhere. 55.6 million with full-time jobs. The last results we have currently show only 53.6 million people have full-time jobs. In simple terms, here's what it means. Between when the elections held last year and today, 2 million people are no longer on full-time jobs.